There's a kind of person who walks into a room and instantly knows something is off. No one said anything. Nothing obvious happened. But their brain has already scanned the faces, the tone, the tension, and the silence. Most people call this anxiety, but there's another name for it: traumatic intelligence. Today, we're going through 12 signs you might have it because this kind of intelligence doesn't come from school. It was built for survival. So let us get into it. Sign 1. You absorb a room before a single word is spoken. The moment you step through a door, something in your brain activates. You clock the body language, the tension sitting between two people, the voice that sounds cheerful but has something tight underneath it. This is not a party trick. Developmental psychologists have shown that children who grow up in emotionally volatile or unpredictable environments develop an unusually heightened sensitivity to nonverbal cues. Their brains learn early to read what the words are not saying, because in those environments, what was not said was often the most important information available. You feel other people's emotions before they have named them themselves. Someone tells you they are fine, and you already know they are not. You catch the shift in energy, the slight withdrawal, the way their breathing changed. Psychologists refer to this as hyperempathy, and it develops most strongly in people who spent their early years monitoring the emotional states of others as a matter of necessity. You were not born an empath. You were trained into one by circumstances that required it. Chaos makes you sharper, not slower. When a real crisis hits, you do not freeze. Something almost clinical takes over. While the people around you are scrambling, you become quiet, focused, and strategic. Researchers describe this as stress inoculation, the process by which repeated exposure to high-stakes conditions trains the nervous system to perform under pressure rather than collapse. Your baseline was calibrated in chaos, and so chaos feels familiar in a way that actually steadies you. Sign 4. You analyze human behavior like it is your second language because it is. You replay conversations. You dissect small choices. You catch inconsistencies between what someone says and how they are sitting. This compulsive analysis was not born from intellectual curiosity alone. It was born from the urgent need to understand people whose behavior once felt unpredictable and sometimes dangerous. Understanding people was how you stayed safe. That habit never switched off. It just found broader territory to operate in. Sign 5. You can detect inauthenticity almost instantly. When someone is performing, masking, or quietly manipulating a situation, something in you flags it before your conscious mind can fully articulate why. Growing up in environments where the truth was often hidden behind a presented version of things trains the brain to become extraordinarily sensitive to the gap between appearance and reality. This makes you very difficult to gaslight. You trust your own perception with a fierceness that can surprise people who have never had to fight to keep hold of their own version of events. Sign 6. You solve problems sideways. The conventional path, the logical sequence, the rule-following approach, these feel limiting to you. Your brain learned to navigate chaos by finding the effective solution rather than the correct one. You discovered backdoors and workarounds and unconventional angles in situations where the expected route was closed off or dangerous. That adaptive problem-solving does not disappear when life stabilizes. It becomes a cognitive superpower that people around you struggle to replicate because it was never taught. It was earned. Sign 7. You carry the kind of independence that is almost impossible to turn off. You solve things alone. You do not wait for help, and more honestly, you do not quite believe it will come. When support actually shows up, something in you hesitates before accepting it. This was not a character choice. When early environments trained the brain to associate dependence with disappointment, self-reliance became the safest strategy available. Competence became the armor. The difficult truth is that this same armor has probably kept some people at a distance who genuinely wanted to be close. Sign 8. You feel things at a depth that can be almost overwhelming. A piece of music cuts through you. An act of unexpected kindness from a stranger moves you far more than seems proportionate. Witnessing injustice does not just register intellectually, it lands physically. The amygdala, sensitized through years of heightened emotional activation, lowers the threshold for emotional response across the board. You do not process the world from the outside. You absorb it. People have called this too sensitive your whole life. What they actually meant was too aware. Sign 9. You have a mental premortem running on everything. Before a project, a conversation, a decision, your brain has already mapped out every possible failure. You have a plan B and a plan C, and probably a contingency for the contingency. In a professional context, this can look like overthinking. In reality, it is advanced risk architecture. You are never blindsided because you have already lived through a dozen versions of how things could go wrong before anyone else has even noticed a problem forming. Sign 10. Trust is slow to arrive, but when it does, it is built differently. Your threshold for trusting people is higher than average, and that is not cynicism. Cognitive psychologists call this adaptive skepticism. Your brain learned early that signals of safety are not always genuine and built its filters accordingly. Those filters have cost you in loneliness and in connections that never fully formed. But the relationships that do pass through them tend to be among the most honest and durable that either person has ever experienced. Sign 11. Stillness is harder for you than it sounds. Rest should feel like relief. Instead, it often feels like a setup. When things go quiet, your nervous system does not simply wind down. It waits. It listens. It anticipates the next disruption. This is a body that has not yet fully received the message that the danger has passed. Learning to genuinely rest is one of the most difficult and necessary pieces of work for someone with traumatic intelligence. It is not laziness that makes stillness hard. It is a survival system that was never told it could stand down. Sign 12. You carry a hunger for meaning that shallow things cannot touch. You do not move through life on the surface. You have looked at pain directly, your own and other people's, and something in you has refused to let it be pointless. Psychologists Richard Tedeschi and Lawrence Calhoun have studied this phenomenon extensively under the framework of post-traumatic growth, documenting how a significant number of people who navigate real adversity emerge with a deeper and more grounded sense of what matters and why. Not as an intellectual conclusion, but as something forged through lived experience. Here is what ties all 12 together. These are not weaknesses that have been repackaged to sound better. They are genuine neurological and psychological adaptations. They are the architecture of a mind that had to grow faster and in directions that most people never needed to go. The sharpness is real, but so was the cost. And psychology asks us to hold both truths at the same time without canceling one out with the other. If you recognized yourself across these signs, that recognition matters. Because for a long time, the very things that made you perceptive and deep and resilient were probably the same things that made you feel like something was fundamentally wrong with you. There was never anything wrong with you. You were adapting to what was around you. And you did it with a sophistication that most people will never fully see or understand. The question from here is not what happened to you. The question is what you decide to do with the extraordinary mind that it built. Drop a comment and let me know which of these 12 hit closest to home.